Matt Canavan, I have to ask you about a post you did last week, and we weren't able to have you on the show last week. You were in the Senate, I believe. We weren't able to speak to you. I would have asked then. It was a week old, but it's still important, I think. It was a Black Coal Matters post. Given the Black Lives Matter movement is about deaths in police custody, people of colour being essentially incarcerated and also dying at the hands of police in higher numbers, which we know to be true, how is the sticker appropriate or respectful?
I don't pay any respect to Black Lives Matter, the movement. Patricia, I'm sorry, I've got a different view than you on that. It's very different from the statement. The statement's absolutely right. The movement, though, has been involved in violent protests in the US with Antifa. It's defied public health orders here in Australia and may have played a role in the outbreak in Victoria, certainly a number of cases there. And it's got a radical agenda.
And right in the middle of that explanation, we lose Matt Canavan. I will hopefully get him back. Ed Husick, I will go to you on that. Hopefully Matt Canavan will come back, though, because I actually would like to follow up. I do have him back. Let me get him back. We're living large and we're living on the edge here. Matt Canavan, I will pick you up on something. Firstly, in terms of the Victorian outbreak you talk about, there was no evidence found by the health department that it was a spreader event, that protest, but let's park that. No, that's the facts.
You mean the tracing, the tracing that was done by fax machine? We'll never know. We'll never know. We'll never know the impact of 10,000 people going around Melbourne because the Victorian government.
I want to go to the substantive issue, which is you might not like the protesters. I'm talking about the issue. The Black Lives Matter issue is about black people dying at the hands of police. That's what it's about. It's about human deaths.
It's not about that. Sorry, Patricia. Go to their website. Read their aims. It's not about that. This is a radical activist organisation that has hijacked a very important issue, but hijacked it to pursue a radical and violent agenda. They should be absolutely condemned. How can any group get away with hiding behind words? You should be judging them on their actions.
I'm talking about
whether or not the Victorian.
The actual issue. I'm asking you to talk about the issue.
The issue is absolutely important, and we do need to do more on those things. But the movement itself deserves to be ridiculed. It deserves to be condemned because of its anti-peaceful demonstrations in the US, because of its defiance of public health orders during a pandemic. And I'm sorry, yes, there's no evidence that they were involved in the Victorian outbreak, but that's because the Victorian government had no tracing program. They were doing it all by fax machine. We'd never know, but it wasn't a good idea for 10,000 people to congregate in Melbourne during a pandemic. You don't have to be, you can be blind Freddy and work that out.
Yeah, I'm talking about the evidence, not whether you thought it was a good idea. I obviously don't believe that people should be gathering
the authorities,
in large numbers.
It was against the law, Patricia.
Yeah,
it was against the law.
That's a different issue to whether it was a super spreader event. Ed Husick, I think you've had some views about this Black Coal Matters post.
Look, I'm just going to say this. Matt Canavan is a very smart bloke who is pushing a line that will resonate with his base. Because no one can say, with all those people that have come out, the people that have taken to the streets, who have been concerned about someone having a knee on their neck causing a death, and all the people who lost their lives, and when you look at the way it happened, you go, there was something wrong about this, and people spoke up. I hate the idea that you can get the actions of those people that might be at the edge and besmirch an entire movement where people have said enough is enough, both over there and importantly here in terms of Aboriginal deaths in custody. There are some hard truths we have to face up to, and people should be entitled to express their views on it. If the authorities say you shouldn't protest in large numbers and you shouldn't have people going out in Victoria throwing up the Nazi salute at protests and having all that type of stuff broken up, I get, and courts have made decisions in New South Wales to stop protests. It's got to be done legal, but people have got the right to express a view about something that's had an impact on so many lives in a terrible way, and we wouldn't want anyone to have to cop it.
They shouldn't break the law. They shouldn't break the law.
Yeah, the breaking of the law is one point, but the substantive point, Matt Canavan, that you're trivialising the deaths of black people. You don't want to be trivialising the deaths of black people, do you?
hang on. I'm also highlighting how important it is to support the workers behind me. These guys, during the pandemic, have not complained.
Don't deflect.
Away from their family. Hang on.
Come on, mate, don't deflect.
Let him finish his sentence if you don't mind.
Okay.
He can't finish his sentence because his connection is frozen.
I was in the wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry.
Well, either way, his connection has just failed on us. So Matt Canavan's back. I'll let you complete your sentence, Matt Canavan.
Okay. I was just saying it's really important to highlight the efforts of our mining industry who have helped us through the pandemic. Many of them have been locked away from their family for months at a time because of the border restrictions, yet they do their job without any complaint by the left, by Greenies, and they get constantly demonised when they're the ones paying the bills for organisations like the ABC. They're helping to fund our schools and hospitals, and they'll be the ones that help us get us out of this terrible debt that we've
you're
got
raising
into
other
with the
issues.
coronavirus.
I'm asking you, do you think it's okay to trivialise a movement that's about black deaths?
Well, I've answered that, Patricia, because yes, I do, because that movement, the BLM movement, deserves to be condemned and ridiculed for their violent behaviour.
But how about if the message you're sending is that you don't take black deaths in custody seriously?
Well,
Are you willing to take that risk?
I've said absolutely I do take that issue very seriously. But as I say, a movement should not be able to hide behind mere words. It's the actions that what people do, in my view, that's important, not what they say. So this organisation says that they care about black lives, yet they're out there engaged in violent protests in black communities in the United States. They're out there at least increasing the risk of transmission. As I say, I still think that event probably did play a role in Victoria and Melbourne. We'll never know because the deficiencies in the Victorian government tracing program. And it's got a radical activist agenda.
Well, we can only rely on the facts in front of us is always my view, and the facts didn't show that. You're making an assumption. But we've run out of time. Sorry for the dodgy lines for our viewers, but thank you to both of you for coming on. I'll speak to you again next week. National Senator Matt Canavan there and Labor MP Ed Husick too. In breaking